Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second and final night in our series of Dairy Beef 500 webinars. On tonight's show, we are going to be discussing calf sourcing and calf feeding. At this time of the year, farmers are busy preparing to buy and rear calves from dairy farms, and tonight's topics on sourcing and feeding should be very timely for anyone involved in rearing calves. Key priorities of a successful calf rearing period is to ensure that a good quality, healthy calf is sourced and that they are fed well to optimise performance. Our excellent panel tonight will share advice and experience to ensure a successful calf rearing season. Joining me in studio tonight are Teagasc Dairy Beef 500 advisor, Charlie Smith, programme farmer from County Cavan, and also Liam Gannon from Volok Milk Replacers Ireland. My name is Fergal Maguire, Dairy Beef 500 Programme Advisor. This evening I would like to remind you that this webinar has been recorded. We encourage your participation tonight, and to ask questions, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screens. So first up tonight to give us a presentation on calf sourcing and the commercial beef value is my colleague Tommy Cox from the Dairy Beef 500. So over to you, Tommy.
Thanks very much, Fergal. With calving in full swing on dairy farms right around the country, over the coming weeks and months, a large number of calves will be traded between both beef and dairy enterprises. Sourcing a healthy calf at an optimum price is fundamental to the success of a dairy calf to beef enterprise. And over the next few minutes, we'll look at some of the important areas that warrant attention by dairy calf to beef producers. Okay, so what do dairy or calf to beef producers want in their calf? They want a healthy calf, and that's fundamental. And a calf that gets an illness at a young age generally can be compromised right throughout its life cycle, and performance levels won't be to the standards that they should be. They want a calf from a trusted source. You know, a person that's doing a good job on the first 2 to 3 weeks of the calf's life cycle, you know, that's giving the calf adequate levels across them and providing the right environment for that young calf. They want value for money. You know, paying over the odds for the calf at the time of purchase is generally going to erode the potential profits to be made from that animal. Age of the calf is important, you know. Generally, you'd like the calf to be 3 weeks of age or greater. Generally, when a calf hits 3 weeks of age, they're less susceptible to certain diseases, such as your scour, particularly your rotavirus and your coronavirus. An animal that will not disappoint at slaughter, and that's crucially important. You know, an animal that will pull the scales down to a relatively good level, because that's what a farmer is paid for when an animal is slaughtered, for kilos of carcass. And no honest genetics, you know, a farmer that's willing to use a relatively good quality bull and that's willing to record that data against the calf, you know, to accurately record the calf. What you want is, suppose, these two images sum it up well. Purchasing a young calf from a good environment, and then that'll go on, that'll perform right throughout its life cycle, and then when it's ready to slaughter, won't disappoint and will achieve a good carcass weight. Okay, so just looking at the calf's physical appearance, and what are the areas that you should be looking for when you're going into a pen of calves. Okay, ideally you'd like the calf to be alert, you know, that he's up, he's aware of his surroundings, that he's no way lethargic or lying away from the rest of the calves. You know, there's no real issues with it. You know, you'd like a clean, damp nose and bright eyes, that he's fully aware of his environment. There's no signs of lameness on the calf, that they're able to bear the weight on all of their limbs. You know, any signs of lameness or any bits of an issue with calf walking might have indicated a previous issue with, such as joint hill or navel limb, and that's something that you don't want in a calf. The navel cord of the calf, ideally you want it to be dry and withered and shriveled. You know, that'll indicate that the calf is at least 10 days to 2 weeks of age, and that's a minimum, at least a minimum age that you should be purchasing the calf. Also, it'll show you that the calf's navel was treated with a disinfectant, you know, be it a chlorhexidine or an iodine product, and that's a sign of good practice being obtained on the calf's farm of birth. A relaxed breathing from the calf. Relaxed breathing would indicate that there was no previous issues with pneumonia, or there's no onset of pneumonia issues occurring with the calf. And then no other visible signs of any other diseases, such as your scour or any other diseases that particularly be prevalent in young calves. Okay, you can just see this calf here. You can see he's happy in his environment. He's up, he's alert. There's no water running from his eyes or no mucus. You can see there's a bit of straw out of his mouth. These group of calves, they're all relatively happy in their surroundings. They're looking around and they're relatively happy. You can see possibly the calf in the background if you were purchasing the calf. That's the sort of calf that you would be looking at. You know, he's lying down there. You'd be getting him up to see does he stretch. You know, what's his general health like. Our next image there shows us a calf with a nice dry clean navel, you know, no signs of lumps. He's a healthy navel. The navel, when the young calf hits the ground, it's a first spot that, you know, you can see bacteria can transfer to the animal. So it's important that the navel is dry, clean and well disinfected. And our last calf, look, it's an obvious sign. You can see the calf is profusely scouring. You know, that's the sort of a calf that you would be avoiding, but also you would be avoiding other calves from that farm, because generally if one or two calves are scouring on the farm, it can mean that there's a breakdown about to occur, and that's something you don't want to be bringing back to the young calves that you have already on your farm. Okay, so we spoke about the calf, and that's an important area, but the source the calf is coming from is just as important. You know, the calf is calved down, he's fully naive when he hits the ground, so how he is reared for the first day or two of birth and then right up up until he's 3 weeks of age will determine how well the calf performs right throughout its life cycle. Okay, so the calf source greatly influences the disease risks on the rearing farm. Obviously, because the calf, when he hits the ground on the farm of origin, you know, he's naive, and whatever the diseases or bacteria are present on that farm, he will potentially pick it up and carry them diseases right throughout the first couple of weeks and on through the calf rearing phase. You know, minimise the number of sources. Ideally, if you can build relationships with farmers and try and keep the number of farmers that you're sourcing the calves from as compact as possible, especially farms that you have relationships built up with previous years. You know, if you can continuously build that relationship and improving that relationship, you're happy with the calf you're getting. There's no reason why you shouldn't look to purchase as many calves from the minimum sources as possible, as you're reducing the number of, I suppose, potential farms and reducing the potential risk of bringing disease onto your farm. Look, this always isn't possible for farmers that's looking to buy big numbers. You know, they might have to purchase calves from a number of sources, but what you will be saying is try and maximise the number of calves you can from within those sources. Gather as much information on the herd health status of the origin farm. So see what's actually going on that farm, you know. Have a chat with the farmer, see what issues may be underlying on the farm. See, is the farmer vaccinating, maybe possibly for scour? Had he other previous issues maybe with his replacement heifers? You know, so have a chat with the farmer and see what's actually going on that farm. You know, is there any current or previous diseases issues on the farm? Obviously, with your young calves, your scour and your pneumonia probably would be the two ones that would be to the forefront on most of the farms. So the conversation should be had around what's actually going on that farm. The sire identity, you know, how much attention does the dairy farmer that you're purchasing the calves off, how much attention does he pay to his breeding strategy? Is there a sire registered with the calf? You know, and if so, how good of beef characteristics has that sire? And that's something that we'll look at in a few slides' time when we're speaking about the CBV. The next, you know, it's definitely beneficial to visit the farm of birth. You know, have a look to see what's going on the farm. Have a look to see how the calves are being treated. Have a chat to the farmer, you know, talk to him about his colostrum and feed management of the calves. Ideally, what you'd like to see from the calves that you're buying off that farm, they're treated as the same way as his next generation or his replacement heifers. The distance and the mode of transport to the rearing farm. In an ideal world, you know, the shorter the distance or shorter the transport from the farm of origin to the rearing farm, the better. But again, likewise, this always isn't possible. So, you know, pick as many farms locally as possible, and where possible, you know, try and source the calves locally. If not possible, you know, ensure that the transport of the calves is to a high standard and that all legislation is followed. Okay, so look at the number of calf sources that you buy from, you know, generally will increase the disease pressure on the farm. We're not saying that, you know, if you buy your calves from one source that you're not going to have a disease onset, but you are minimising your potential risk. Okay, so we spoke about in our last slide the commercial beef value. You know, it's potentially a game changer for dairy calf to beef producers. You go into a pen of calves, a pen of early maturing calves, a pen of continental calves, it can be very difficult to pick out what calves is actually going to go on to perform well for you from when he arrives on your farm until he leaves your farm as a beef animal or as a store animal. So a tool, I suppose, to take the guesswork out of this is the commercial beef value, or the CBV, which was launched by the Irish Cattle Breeders Federation in 2021. It's a tool to identify the higher mert beef calves. How does it work? It gives the animal a euro value based on the genetics of the parents. So it takes into account the beef characteristics of their sire and their dam. It compromises of 6 key traits from the beef subindex, and it also contains a carbon element. And them 6 traits from the beef subindex are carcass weight, which is crucially important at slaughter, carcass conformation, feed intake, factory spec, slaughter age, and then there's a docility element of the index. It's generated for all cattle that are likely to be finished. So it is there for any animals, either dairy cross dairy animals or beef cross dairy animals coming from the dairy herd. Animals are assigned to 1 or 3 different breed types within the value. So animals are assigned a star rating of 1:5, with the 4 and 5 star animals being within the top 40% within their own population. So 4 or 5 star animals between the beef or the dairy cross animals. The CBV, where can you get it? Any farmer that's Herd Plus or has a Herd Plus account, it's available through the profile section of their Herd Plus account. If you're purchasing calves on mart, where them calves have a genotype or genotyped, the value will be included on mart boards. It won't be included on mart boards for animals that aren't genotyped. But with the high number of animals enrolled in the National Genotyping Programme, you would expect a high volume of calves coming for sale this year, and more possibly in the coming years, that this value will be available. So within the value itself, if you're purchasing beef cross dairy animals, be it continental calves or early maturing calves from the dairy herd, ideally, if you're sourcing animals, ideally you will be looking for animals that's 4 star or greater, and what you'll be looking for is animals with a figure of in excess of 79 euros. For your dairy cross dairy animals, you will be looking for your top 40% of your animals, you will be looking for animals with a figure of in excess of 30 euros. Okay, just to wrap up, I suppose, on a few of the main points that we touched today, sourcing a healthy animal is fundamental. You don't want bringing in a sick animal, their performance is going to be compromised, but also you're bringing in the risk of bringing in the disease onto your farm. You should look to see as much information from the source herd prior to purchase as possible, because there's no point going back, when the deal is done and the calf is on the farm, there's no point looking for that information afterwards. Appearance alone is a poor predictor. If you penny young calves there, it can be very difficult to pick out which ones is actually going to go on and perform well versus the ones that's not going to perform too well. So the CBV, it can be a potential game changer for the calf to beef producer. The higher CBV animals exhibit higher performance. All the data to date is showing that your 4 and 5 star animals are outperforming your 1 and 2 star animals. So that data to date, and we will have more data coming on stream in the coming years on that. So the index will become more bulletproof. The onus probably then is back on the dairy farmer, to produce these better quality calves. The calf to beef producer needs to demand these calves, and that puts the pressure back then, I suppose, or the onus back onto the dairy farmer to produce these calves, and they're the animals that will perform well right throughout their life cycle. So Fergal, it's back over to you. If you have any questions, thanks very much.
So thank you, Tommy, for that presentation on sourcing calves and the new commercial beef value index. So look, as the old saying goes, the day you buy is the day you sell. Okay, so just Tommy, just looking, so you work with a good few farmers on the Dairy Beef 500 programme. How has the buying habits changed since they started on that programme?
Yeah, so look at Fergal, the majority of the farmers that I'm dealing with are buying directly off farmers that have a relationship built up in recent years. Look at some farmers would have changed the farmers that they have been dealing with, previously, where maybe certain of issues, maybe with quality or the health of calves, mightn't have been up to the standards that they were requiring. So they would have, but in recent years, the majority of the farmers that we're working with are buying from a select number of farms that are been purchasing calves from the last number of years. So they're happy with the health of the calves, and they're happy with the quality of calves coming to their farm.
Yeah, and so just going forward, will the commercial beef value, will that influence on where they buy the calves?
Yeah, look, it's definitely there. It's a new tool. It's readily available for farmers. Look, the data from it so far is showing on our farms that we're working with that the higher CBV calves are outperforming the lower CBV calves, and the farmers that we're dealing with are copping onto that. So look, they're having the conversation with their source herds, and they're saying, would you be able to try and produce more of these higher CBV animals, because they are going to generate more of a margin for them on their farms. They're going to go into higher carcass weights, and they're going to come to finish at a younger age, and that'll improve the profitability on the dairy, or it'll assist in improving the profitability on the dairy calf to beef enterprises, provided management is correctly.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Tommy. And just to remind the audience to keep the questions coming into the Q&A tab. I can see a few questions coming in already. So next up, we caught with Eric Driver last week, who is a mart manager in Tullow, County Carlow. He spoke to me on his thoughts and experience from the mart's point of view in relation to the new commercial beef value data being a requirement to be displayed on mart boards in the coming weeks. So Eric, thank you for joining us here. So Eric, you're currently the mart manager in Tullow. So look, what days of the week are sales held in Tullow? And lately, have you noticed a change in the type of livestock passing through the mart?
Yeah, hello Fergal, and thank you for having us on. Absolutely. In Tullow, we have our cattle sales every Friday and a calf sale every Friday morning then as well in our second ring in Ring 2. And then we do sheep on a Tuesday, but our predominant cattle sale is on a Friday. Have I seen changes? Certainly we have. Yeah, it's been amazing now in my 10-year career now as being manager of Tullow Mart. It's amazing the type of stock has changed. The number of suckler herds that have gone to their demise around us, and they've been replaced by the dairy industry and dairy herds, and then we've seen the byproducts of that. So certainly we're seeing more of the traditional bred cattledom, Hereford, Angus, Frisian stock back into the mart again. I think one thing in Tullow that some of the more senior farmers that always have said to me was, Eric, when you go into Tullow, you see the Charolais and the limousines, and they're towering over the pens, and it was a great sight to see, and that's getting less and less as we have seen the industry evolve into more dairying around us here. So certainly we are seeing more blacks, more Anguses, black limousines, more Frisians, Herefords in the sales ring. And I was going to say, with the advent of the sex semen, have you noticed that there's more beef bred calves coming on the market a bit earlier? And look, is there a better demand for these type of calves coming from the local farmers? Yeah, I think the sex semen has started evolving in the last maybe 2 years, I'd say, around us here, and it's becoming the buzzword of the calf ring. And certainly we have seen it last year, I suppose, was most noticeable. And as we start into this calving season, I think we will see it even more evidently. But what we'd look at it is saying that we've seen more beef breeds. Certainly we've seen more Herefords, Anguses last year on the ring, and I'm suspecting we'll see the same this year with conversations I've had with our dairy farmers. Probably put off some farmers going back the way it was probably the genetics of some Anguses would be, you couldn't really judge a calf at 3 weeks of age. But look, there's a new commercial beef value, or the CBV, so it's a relatively new tool that marts will be displaying going forward. So Eric, you're in the process of getting your boards upgraded to display this. When this is done, what information can farmers expect to see on it in Tullow Mart? Yeah, well, I think this is a great step. It's a very positive step for the beef industry, and it's a great way of the dairy industry showing what they're able to do and what they can bring into the situation here and to the marketplace. So the CBV value, as we'll talk about it, it's a great step to have, and it's a tool for the farmer buying the calf. It gives he or she a kind of a window opportunity of what they may be going to achieve here by buying this animal. And we in Tullow are looking forward to it. As we always say, our personal touch makes the difference, and this is the personal touch that we can bring here. It's a movement by the industry, and we are endorsing it here. Of course, you can see information then coming up on the board here, which will be relevant to storages of calves. So there'll be a beef by beef type calf here. You could be looking at maybe a beef dairy bred calf here, or you could be looking at a dairy crossbred calf. And those storages will be relevant to the type of calf that they are and their breeding genetics behind them. So it's all about information, and information unlocks so much within the industry. And we have seen in times previously here with, as you've just mentioned, the genetics even of just the Aberdeen Angus, and how that has improved over time. And we see all the breeds where information has been good. So look, farmers can then judge, so based on the CBV, whether they are willing to pay a bit more for the higher value CBVs or a bit less for the lower CBV value. So look, it gives them an idea of the genetic potential of the calves. So look, if farmers are selling calves in the coming
weeks, what information does the farmer selling the calf have to provide to you, Eric, to get the CBV up on the board?
Well, really, the information that they have to have is they have to have their genetical background work done here. So the animal has to have been displayed, and where the animal has been genotyped, for example, here, and they can be then ensured that the sire has been recorded here. So there is a little bit of work to be done in the background before coming into the ring here. But again, this information is all ascertainable at registration, and it all can be done at that particular time. Like the genotyping is a piece that goes out of the ear and goes off to be done there. And then the sire is, it's an obvious recording of the sire when you're recording the birth of the calf. So to be honest with you, there is a little bit of work maybe around it at the farm gate, but I think you're going to get a good positive return for this when you come into the ring, because you're going to be showcasing what you have produced on your farm, and the buyers will buy into this. It may take a little bit of time. It's like a new game of sport being put on the market here. We have to buy in. There's have to be buy-in into this, but I think it's going to happen because at the end of the day, information is key. And a side note that I put to it was, only on Friday gone, I had a local farmer here who rears a lot of calves come into me and he said, Eric, we're going to be actively trying to source calves that are AI bred. And it's not so much that it was the AI part of the point I picked up on it for. The point I picked up on it was that he wants to buy the calves that have the genetic information that will do the rewards from him, that will react to the milk powder, that will be the calves that will drive on and give the weight gain as fast as is possibly for that breed.
And just look for yourselves, Eric. Do you see any positives by displaying the CBV value for calves for yourselves as a mart or other marts going forward?
Yeah, look, information, as I think, I always think that information has a merit, okay? And we have to be balanced at this, because also, as we have mentioned there, like there is going to be low-rated stars, and it's not all going to be positives. There'll be CBVs with high-rated star ratings, and there'll be low-rated star ratings. But I think in time we can help farmers. So I think it goes back again to us as the mart here. And I think the mart industry, we want to ensure we have a good calf industry going forward, that we can be part of that calf sale product where the calves are coming off the dairy farms, that will come into us. We will be able to relate that information. It'll be trustworthy and factual on the board there. So I see all that having a positive for us, and certainly being able to encourage the buyers then to move with that CBV value, to take it on board as they're bidding for a calf, that it has a positive for them. I don't see any negative in it for us, greater than that it's going to take time, right? We're going to have to get buy-in into this.
Probably going forward, it's going to just create probably a race for dairy farmers to generate better and better CBV calves going down the line. But look, it's great to see a mart manager so positive about it. And just thanks again for coming on, Eric.
Well, again, thank you for your time. And I just say, don't forget Tullow Mart. We have a calf sale every Friday at 11 o'clock. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Eric. So in that video, Eric has highlighted the changes that are coming in the marts this spring. And a reminder that an animal needs to be genotyped in order for their commercial beef value to be displayed on the mart boards. So look, we have a farm here, Charlie Smith. So Charlie Smith is a Dairy Beef 500 farmer. So he comes all the way from Virginia and County Cavan. So Charlie, you've been at calf to beef production for the last 6 years. So look, when you're buying your calves, where are you sourcing these calves from, just going forward?
Yeah, so Fergal, we aim to buy 100 calves, beef bred calves from 2 sources. Last year we started using the commercial beef value to pick calves, and this new data allowed me to pick calves from good quality firms. Before this, we didn't have this data, so we couldn't pick calves from using this data. So just looking at it, so this year will be the first year that you will, or this will be the second year that so you wouldn't have any information yet on the commercial beef value, or how cattle are killing out or like that yet? Not yet. Hopefully we'll be killing some of them now in the next month or two, and hopefully what we're looking at from the data that shows us that we'll have a reduced age in slaughter. There would have been higher merits and traits from these animals. And this is all very interesting information from a farmer's point of view, from going out buying calves, from sourcing calves on the ground. Yeah, and so how did you end up with just these 2 farmers in particular? So did you have multiple sources going down the road, or were you buying? Yeah, so in the past, from experience, we would have bought a lot of calves out of marts, we would have bought a lot of calves from local farmers. And just looking at the genetics and the traits, a little bit of what Tommy said in the previous presentation, it's all got to do with it goes beyond the appearance of the animal. it dives deep into the traits and the merits, and from using that information we were able to pick the farmers that had the best traits.
Yeah, so,
and characteristics.
so you're picking farmers that their CBV has come up, that are on average that are high, the calves are high CBV, so I presume there's very high CBV value calves within that and lower CBV value calves, but on average them farms are at the higher CBV.
Indeed.
Yeah, so look, so thanks Charlie, we'll be back to you later, so I think there'll be lots of questions coming into you from farmers outside. So remember, we have a Q&A tab on the bottom of the screen, so please keep the questions coming in. I see a number of questions coming in already. So next up is our speaker for the evening, so that is Liam Gannon from Volak Milk Replacer Ireland. So Liam will be discussing the feeding during the rearing stage, so over to you Liam.
Thank you very much, Fergal. Good evening, everybody. My name is Liam Gannon. I work with Volak Milk Replacers Ireland as a business manager. I'd just like to say a few words on a couple of topics here this evening, namely the specification of what makes a good calf milk replacer and the pros and cons of teat versus automatic feeding systems. In terms of typical analysis of a calf milk replacer, on the column on the right hand side, compared to whole milk on a dry matter basis, we can see generally what you'll find on the back of a bag of milk replacer is a crude protein between 20 to 26%. We'll get an oil or fat level declared at 18 to 20. The lactose isn't declared on the label, but by working out it'll be 45% plus. And generally we'll have a fibre content of either 0 if there's no vegetable protein in the product, up to a maximum of 0.18. The ash ideally is near to what's in whole milk the better, 78%, but you will get products sometimes that can go up to 9 and 10% ash. The big kind of worry when that's the case is just that you might get a little bit of digestive disturbance. So the nearer to what's in whole milk the better. Point to remember when we're talking about formulating a milk replacer is that they're all byproducts from the dairy industry. We'll either have whey protein concentrated, which is concentrated whey protein. When we get liquid whey from the cheese processing, we basically take out lactose and we concentrate up the protein with a gentle drying process. Other than that, one of the most desirable byproducts to use in milk replacer is skim milk powder. Again, 35% protein product, and basically we have a low ash on both of them, but the thing with the two of them is that are all byproducts. They're all low in milk fat, because we've taken everything out either to make cheese or to make butter. The other type of products that people, when they're making milk replacers, are formulating with is straight whey powder, which is low in protein, delactose whey powder, where we take out some of the 73% plus lactose, and by taking out the lactose we concentrate the protein. But the downside of that is that the ash level gets up to a very high level, so we're looking at 78% ash in the product. We are limited into the level and amount of delactose whey powder, and likewise whey powder, because it's low protein, we can include within a milk replacer. People, when they're formulating, if they're putting in fibre, they'll be probably using something the likes of hydrolyzed wheat protein, which is 80%, but you can see the ash is high in it, and likewise the level of fibre. And if there's too much fibre in calf milk replacers, particularly when calves are under 4 weeks of age, it can cause some digestive disturbance when they don't really have great rumen activity to utilise it. What does a farmer see when he's buying a bag of milk replacer? On this is a typical bag of Maverick here, and on the back you'll get the expiry date, the date of manufacture, you'll get the batch number, fierce important just for traceability. You'll find whether there's preservatives in the product just to stop mold, to keep the product stable. And then you'll get the mineral spec, and you'll get the breakdown of the fat, the protein, the fibre and the ash level at the top. Generally, your milk replacer will be, in terms of ingredients, will be in descending order of inclusion. And in this particular bag of Maverick, we're looking at whey protein as the first listed ingredient, and then we have our palm or coconut oils will be next, which is what has replaced our milk fat. And all the other ingredients are in descending inclusion, and as the oil content is 20%, all the others are below 20% inclusion rate within the product. So we're talking about a product that's predominantly whey protein concentrate in makeup. The label, though, doesn't tell us anything about how the product was dried, the quality of that protein. Has it been damaged in the drying process? Is the fat spray dried onto the milk protein when it's been dried in the cooling tower, or is the fat applied later? It doesn't tell you anything about the flowability. So when you actually put the product into an automatic feeder, is it going to bridge within the feeder itself? And I say to you, the level of heat used in the product, has the protein been damaged or denatured? The mixability of it, how soluble is that product? The milk solids themselves, how easy are those going to mix up in water? The palatability end of it, will the calves like it? Is there a taint off it? And how consistent is that product? That when you get a pallet today, is the next pallet in 3 weeks' time going to look the same? The bulk density of it will it be just consistent from one batch to the other? Amino acids, your leucine, your methionine, fierce important for calves' immune system and for growth. There's no spec on basically the labels just to tell you what those are. And the trials that if we're talking about calves going to do 750 grams average daily gain, we don't know from looking at the back of that label how many trials have been done it and whether it will achieve those types of live weight gains or the food conversion efficiency from the product itself. So generally, kind of to sum up, if we're talking about buying a milk replacer, the buying decision, labels don't tell you how the calves are going to perform. So you need to trust the person you're buying the product from, and generally look for something that has a very high level of whey protein concentrate, over 65 to 70% inclusion, or skim milk powder somewhere over 50-55%. If you're looking at products with skim milk powder and they're only 20%, you're not going to get the strong clot that you'll get if you're using a 55% whey protein product. So if you're using then low skim inclusion, you get some of the ingredients clotting and some that won't, because they're made from whey, which doesn't clot. So you might get some bit of digestive disturbance. I'd say to people, if you're calf rearing program, if you have a good program, it's working for a number of years, leave it alone. If it's not fixed, don't break it. Don't change on a whim. And definitely, if you come mid-season, you're rearing calves, don't switch from one brand of milk replacer to another, because calves, particularly baby calves, are very finicky, and any change at all, and it might just be in conjunction with a change in the weather, and suddenly you could spend a lot of time in the calf shed trying to sort out problems. Take time to read the labels. Like the big mistake people do every year is when they're mixing milk replacer, is to get the milk solids wrong when they're doing it. Get away in scales, weigh your powder, and weigh it if you're going from one pallet to another. Always weigh it if you're changing batches. But it's 750 grams of powder is what you want. So it's 875 mils of water with 125 grams of powder to give you 1 litre of mixed milk. And in cold weather, be conscious of changes in cold weather like we're getting this week compared to last week. Always increase your feeding rate or up the solids in cold weather, or you're not going to get the same thrive with calves. And for beef calves, they're coming in 3 to 4 weeks of age. A crude protein of 20-23% is more than adequate. You don't need up to 26% protein going into your milk replacer. Calves at that stage, 3 to 4 weeks, will be taking in a fair bit of starter feeding. They'll be getting their protein from another source. If we're talking about once a day feeding, step them up slowly on it, but don't go once a day till they're 4 weeks of age, because if they're not on their feed when you offer the milk, they've no other way of taking in concentrates to make up for the difference. Few words then just on pros and cons of teat versus automatic feeding systems. The pros, of course, with the teat feeders, low cost system. You know, your 10 or your 12 teat feeder, 200, 250 euros per feeder will get you up and get you running. They can be somewhat automated, just like with the picture there. You have the heater to heat up the water. You can have a milk cart to help you move the milk around the place to your feeders. Or you'll probably have a mixer, basically a drill mixer, just to help you whisk up the milk powder itself. Good observation is the big thing with your 10 teat feeders or blue cows, in that you're looking at the calves while they're drinking, so you know which calves are off form. And the compartmentalized version of the blue feeders, you're controlling the volume intakes, whether it's 2.5 or 3 litres. You have a better idea as to each individual calf of what they're taking. And once they're fed, you're out of the shed. The big, I suppose, downside with your teat feeders is the amount of time you're spending on mixing, feeding and cleaning. Cleaning in particular, you need to have warm water, or else you're going to get these biofilms building up on your feeders, and you're going to have more problems trying to keep the disease at bay. Consistency, again, is the other big downside. time of the day you're feeding has to be trying to keep it consistent. The mixing temperature, whether it's going to be 38 or 25, is to keep it consistent. Try and keep the milk solids levels going in. The actual measuring of the powder is fierce important. And then the volumes. If you're not using compartmentalized feeders, you're using reservoir feeders. So some calves could be drinking 2 litres and some could be drinking 4. So that's something to keep in mind. In terms of the automatic feeders then, labour is the big thing. You're saving, the machine is doing the feeding, the mixing and the cleaning for you. Your calf has a more natural movement in terms of they're not stuck in one small pen with 10 calves. They basically can go around three bays, you know, bigger area, 30 calves maybe within the pen. You get consistency as well of feeding rather than 3 litres morning and evening. You're feeding 2 litres in 3 feeds or even higher if you so wish. And the calf health is monitored automatically as well as by observation yourself. The gradual weaning process, you can wean over 3, you can wean over 4 weeks, but every day a certain amount of milk has been taken out, so there's less stress on the calf, and generally you find there's no balling when you go into the shed with an automatic feeder. Bigger pens maybe help towards cleaning out and bedding. The downside of course is the startup costs are high, even with TAM's assistance on them. You're looking 2-teat feeder, anything from 12.5 up to 20,000 for a 4-station feeder. Starting calves on the feeder can take time. Is work done when more part with Alison's Sinnott. You can spend a lot of time getting calves going on calf feeders. Suitable shed might not be available. You need a bigger shed. If you're 120 calves, you're going to need 2 to 3 square metres per calf. Water pressure is fierce important. If water pressure is wrong, if you don't have 2-bar pressure, you don't have a storage tank, there is a big risk of getting bloat outbreaks, and if your min-max on your feed plan is not set correctly, you do get episodes of cross sucking. If the power goes, or if you're not keeping your bags topped up in the hopper, or if you have frost, these are things that can put the shed wrong on you. After that, say if those things go wrong, a big group in a pen can lead to a lot of stress. The big advantage as well, I suppose, on the feeder, it does record all the milk consumed by each individual calf, and basically that's there to be downloaded from the cloud if someone needed it at short notice. The work that was done by Alison Sinnott and John Paul Murphy with Emer Kennedy, the main thing what is shown on those 2 charts is that with manual feeding, your big time with the purple section there is actually with feeding, whereas on the automatic feeder in the green, the biggest chunk of your time is getting the calves started or trained up on the feeder. So a lot of people, maybe sometimes you might be a little bit cruel to be kind, that if you show a few calves the teeth, generally calves if they're left for a while, they'll find the teeth themselves. But the main thing with the automatic feeder there in the purple, that once you get them going, the feeder basically takes over and does all the feeding, cleaning and weaning for you. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Fergal, if there's any questions.
So many thanks for that excellent presentation, Liam, on feeding milk replacer and rearing calves. So look, Liam, I'll just come with just a quick question. So look, there's always talk about whether skim or whey based is better, but do you see any difference in calf performance whether they're fed one or the other?
Fergal, just go back to the slides there again. Like skim and whey protein, very, very similar in performance. If you're talking about getting the performance from, you do want a high inclusion of both of those type products. So really, if you're talking about the dry performance, either 55% inclusion of skim or over 65% inclusion of whey protein concentrate, which is basically where the protein is concentrated up. It's very digestible, and likewise skim protein is very digestible. But what's more important as well to bear in mind is that you could have a fantastic milk replacer, but if it's not mixed correctly and if it's not fed at set times, and there's different people mixing it up and not adhering to the rates, well then that can affect the performance of the powder anyway,
Mm-hmm. And then just looking at it, like getting concentrate into the calves is very important. So they should be starting on it after maybe a week, 10 days time. But look, does certain milk replacers encourage more intake of concentrate and others less, or
If you're talking to a dairy farmer who's feeding whole milk, the one thing a dairy farmer will tell you is that it's always very hard to get them on to start taking in meal.
Yeah.
And that's very much to do with the fact that from one of the slides there that the oil level from the fat within the milk fat itself is over 35% in whole milk on a dry matter basis, where your milk replacer, whether it's skim or whey, generally your oil content is going to be at 18-20%. So the fact that your oil is that bit less, it creates a little bit more of a want or a hunger on calves to start nibbling at solid feeds. So whether it's skim or whey, skim does have to clot first, whereas whey doesn't, because the clotting takes place in the cheese process, but you will get equally as good feed intake, meal intake on either one.
Yeah, so that's one thing to just be conscious of. It skim or whey, you can still get the same.
You can still get the same thing.
From both. So look, many thanks for that, Liam. So now we will have a panel discussion with all our three panellists. So Tommy, I'm going to hit you with the first question here. So look, I see a lot of questions is coming in there, right, Tommy? So look, maybe just starting off with something simple under sourcing calves. So look, how many sources are too many for someone buying 100 calves, or is it a round number? Or?
Look, I suppose there's no real right answer for that, Fergal. It probably takes only one wrong source where you can bring in a lot of disease from your farm. But when you increase the number of sources, you increase the risk of bringing in that one wrong source. You know, that's the big issue. The one wrong source you can bring in a disease. Look, we have 16 farmers. They're probably buying on average 130 calves per year across the farms, and the average number of sources for that 130 calves is a little over 5.5. But that's what it only takes one wrong source to bring in something, you know, some sort of a scour, bacterial scour, or some a pneumonia onto the farm. So that's what we're saying is, but that's 5.5 to 6 sources is what our farmers are.
And look, that's okay for lads buying directly of farmers, but in many cases we see a lot of calves are traded to marts.
Yep.
And look, so how can you overcome some of the health issues from buying from many different sources and also from marts? Is there a way of overcoming?
Yeah, look, there definitely is ways. Look, would you want a good biosecurity system in place on your farm? You know, you probably maybe need to isolate the calves for a certain period of time after arrival onto the farm. You want a stringent herd health plan, you know, and we probably touched on a lot of areas in that in our previous webinar, but you want a rigid herd health plan in place, you know, that covers maybe coccidiosis and your pneumonia as well. So that's something that you would want to implement if you are buying off more numerous sources.
Yeah, so look, we'll just move a bit on the DBI, Dairy Beef Index, and the CBV, the commercial beef value. So look, can we really get a short gestation, easy calving bulls and have a decent carcass? I find the biggest problems can be variation in cow type, too many crossbreds and small cows.
Yeah, look, there is lots of bulls there that tick the boxes with both calving difficulty, short gestation, and with good carcass rates, you know, carcass weights. With regards to the question of, you know, or the comment there that the crossbred cows, you know, that's where the dairy farmer with the crossbred cow or the cow with lower beef merits, that's where he needs to up his game with regards to beef sub-indexes on the DBI. You know, he needs to be really delving into a higher positive, you know, he wants to be 12, 14, 16 kilos of carcass, you know, from that bull to counteract some of the negative beef characteristics that the cow might be holding.
But it is possible to get...
Oh, it definitely is possible. And look, in fairness to the ICB, or to the AI companies in recent years, there's a wide variety of bulls out there that will, you know, tick the box with regards carcass weight, carcass conformation, and calving ease and calving gestation. And even, you know, the pedigree breeders out there are up in their game as well, and, you know, they are producing them type of bulls.
Yeah. So look, I'll move on to Charlie. Come back to you. There's lots of questions for you, Tommy. So I'll just pass it over to Charlie. So look, Charlie, one of the high attrition rate in dairy calf to beef production, right? A lot of lads dropping out. You got into calf to beef 6 years ago. Was mortality? Did you find mortality an issue, or is mortality ever an issue on your farm there? So just calf mortality.
No, Fergal, mortality was never an issue really on our herd. From the get-go in 2019, we implemented a good vaccination program between our two local vets. Starting off with a small number of calves at 40 calves in 2019. In 2020 we moved on to 60, and then we moved on to where we are now at 100 calves. So by kind of gradually increasing over the last couple of years, we've gone from buying from multiple sources now to reducing that to three sources. We've been able to kind of overcome a lot of the pitfalls that one would expect when rearing young calves.
So just take it like last year, you reared 100 calves. How many calves did you lose?
1%, one.
You just lost one calf. Yeah, that's very good. So look, we're going to be talking to Charlie's a calving man, and we're going to talk a bit of money here. I don't know whether he wants to give it away or not. So look, what kind of money are you talking about? So when you're buying calves, so for your Angus Herefords.
Last year we gave an average of 130 over the 100 calves.
Right.
So that would have been, we would have bought mainly dairy beef, and we would have travelled a bit more down the country than we would have liked. We would have been buying more locally, but this was all got to do with the commercial beef value.
Yeah, and just looking at it, so 130, were you buying Frisian calves at that as well?
75% were
beef bred calves.
Beef bred calves.
Yeah, so you got good value there. What age are you buying them calves at?
3 to 4 weeks. 4 weeks on more on the plus side.
Yeah. And so, look, probably looking at it, so when you are going to buy your calves, are you buying all the calves? So one of the questions is, so does Charlie buy all the calves from each farm, or does he select on CBV breeds? So do you pick the calves you want, or do you just buy a group of calves? Or
We pick the calves as best as we can. You have to work with the farmer. Like, it's very difficult to go in and not bring a group if that's what the farmer is selling.
yeah,
You have to build up a good relationship with the farms that you're buying off.
yeah. So
it has to work both ways.
Yeah, and you're getting good calves. Look, Liam, I'll move on to you. So look, again, feeding calves, it can be a tricky one to get right, especially for any new entrants getting into calf to beef or into rearing calves. So look, starting off, how much milk powder should be fed to a 3-week-old calf to wean in?
It's not going to be a bag, right?
Right.
That's for one thing. You often hear that figure being quoted, but like, if you're talking about 3 weeks to wean, and generally you're trying to double the calf's birth weight. Somewhere we're talking about a 38 kilo calf. We're trying to double the birth weight at birth. We're trying to double the birth weight at 8 weeks of age. So we're trying to be up at 8 weeks of age. We're trying to be up near 80 kilos, right? And then we'll be weaning from 80 kilos back to 100. There is over 2 to 3 weeks, but there is a tradition with some people of weaning their calves at 85 kilos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're talking about, depends on how much milk replacement from 3 weeks to wean, depends on what weight you want that calf at, right? So you're generally going to be leaving that calf on milk 3 litres morning and even till they get to week 8, which is going to be 5 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to wean that calf. Then you'll either go 3 litres morning only for a week, or 2 weeks, and then cut it back even to 2 litres for the last week, and then off. So you can work out, figure that it'll be about 1.5 bags of powder is what you're going to use to finish that calf.
And getting meal, so intake of meal is a very important parameter for weaning a calf. So what would you be saying, just in terms of how much meal should they be consuming?
I don't want to, like the minimum of a kilo, but to wean them you want to be 1.5 kilos before you really take them off of milk, or otherwise they're kind of going to melt a little bit on you, like, you know. You want to keep them going.
So look, I have a question here. So down to what degrees would you up the powder rate? So I'd say it's talking about just the temperature. So if it drops maybe, so say it's 7 degrees and it drops 3 degrees, how much would you up the milk?
Yeah, the ideal temperature to feed milk replacer at is 38 degrees, right? And if you're feeding it at 20, the calf still has to warm that milk up to 38 within its system. So feeding milk colder, not everyone has access to warm water the whole time to have the mixing temperature correct at 38 degrees. But if you are, and there is a tradition with some people to feed milk colder milk, and even quite cold, maybe 15 degrees, you are burning energy up. That calf is burning energy up out the milk you're feeding them, because they have to still warm that 15 degree milk back up to 38. So you're not getting the full value of the milk you're feeding. To answer the question you're asking, basically, if you're 15 degrees today and you're dropped down to 5 degrees tomorrow, that's a 10 degrees drop in temperature, right? In theory, you should nearly be feeding an extra half a litre morning and evening, 3.5 litres morning and evening. But you have to be very careful. You just can't go straight in from 3 litres today and 3.5 the next year. You're going to cause digestive upset. So you really would kind of be conscious that in the cold snap of weather, you're better to always be stepping your milk replacer up to counteract. 3 litres is fine, but calves won't try as well because of the cold weather. So if you're trying to keep a growth rate right, you need to kind of push that up a little bit more, maybe 3.25 litres morning and evening, not too much.
And as the calves get older, so say they're moving on to 5-6 weeks, is that as big as issue? So
No, it's not, Fergal. In fairness, as they get older, number one, we're pushing out into the spring further. Number one, temperature should be warming up, but on top of that, the rumen is starting to increase in size of the calf, and so basically you're going to take them. There's going to be a lot of energy generated with heat from the rumen itself, so that'll keep the calf going. Like, you know.
Yeah, and so Charlie, just moving on to your calf rearing, and Liam, you can come in and there. Just explain. So when you get the calf, what's your procedure?
Yeah, so generally we would purchase the calves or pick the calves up at 3 to 4 weeks of age. We would transport them home. We would leave them for 24 hours. They might get electrolytes on arrival. We usually pick them up in the afternoon, evening, so they come in, they get electrolytes, they come into the shed. We have a 10-bay shed suitable for the calves. It is bedded with about 2 foot of straw. There's about 10 calves in every pen, so there's less stress. And the next morning they're fed milk replacer with a JFC milk cart in blue teat feeders, 10 calves per pen, and about an hour and 20 minutes would feed the whole shed.
Yeah, and just milk replacers, how much do you feed morning and evening?
3 litres morning and evening, twice a day.
Yeah, and you haven't gone to once a day?
We haven't tried it, no.
Yeah, you're happy with what you're doing?
It's what we're doing is working well.
Yeah, so 1% mortality is very good, isn't it, Liam?
It is brilliant, and again, like once a day is not for everyone. The big plus of once a day is that they're at least 4 weeks of age before you go on it, and like where you were given, or where Charlie's given 750 grams of solids in over 2 feeds, 375 grams in the morning, 375 grams in the evening. With once a day feeding, you're trying to give them 650 grams in about 3.5 litres of water. So your solids have gone from 12.5% to 20%. So you have to be very careful that if you're doing it, to step it up slowly, and the calves have access to drinking water to counteract the high dry matter of the feed you're given. But from a labour point of view, if someone's trying to rear calves, big numbers, and trying to work off farm as well at the same time, it does work if you adhere to the instructions carefully on it, like, you know.
Yeah.
You need, like, in order to have like low mortality, you need to be at it full time in a full time gig. If you're in an off farm job, which a lot of farmers are, it's going to be obviously harder to detect the signs of calves being sick or ill, because them couple of hours at that young age is absolutely critical.
So look, I'll move on to you, Tommy, again back onto the commercial beef value. So look, is a low CBV Angus worth any more than a good Friesian? I can get Friesians most spring for €50-60 at 3 weeks of age. Angus calves are too dear to me at the moment.
Yeah, look, and that's probably a similar trend that a lot of our Dairy Beef 500 farmers will be following. They'll be purchasing a lot of Friesian calves. And look, that's probably back to the inconsistencies maybe with some of the early maturing breeds and even some of the continental breeds where poor quality low beef mart bulls are being used, and you know it's having a knock-on effect on them animals when they're coming to slaughter. You know, farmers might be giving €200 for the calves, and they aren't performing any better than their Friesian counterparts. You know, and that is a 100% fair comment. But I suppose the work that's there, where I suppose from Grange and you know, even from our farmers that we're dealing with ourselves, you know, where high merit animals, you know, high CBV animals, be it early maturing or continental, where they're being purchased on farm at the appropriate price, they are leaving more of a return than your Friesians. But definitely where your early maturing or your continental breed aren't up to scratch, or the quality isn't there, you're better off with your good quality Friesian.
Yeah, less risk.
Yeah.
And so look, going out and sourcing these high CBV calves, we can see that they can be sourced in the mart if their genotype is coming up on the board. But if a farmer's buying direct, can you get to CBV with a herd owner? Where can you get that? So
yeah, so it's available for Herd Plus for farmers that's members of the Herd Plus on
so the
ICBF.
dairy
farmer has to be on the ICBF Herd Plus, and it's available through the profile section of their Herd Plus account. You know, so it's readily available.
So
there.
you need Herd Plus.
You do need a Herd Plus for the dairy farmer. Will need a Herd Plus for tax system.
Yeah, and then look, CBV can be generated on calves without a genotype, so that can be generated based on parented averages.
Yeah.
Is that a reliable way?
Look, if the sire and dam is recorded correctly, it is going to be fairly reliable. But the genotype will, first of all, it'll verify the sire and it'll verify the dam, and that'll then, I suppose, ensure that the value is bulletproof. You know, it has the sire and dam verified, and it has their genetic makeup verified, so that this CBV will become more accurate.
Yeah, and so just looking at it, so for the dairy farmers, so any dairy farmers that are tuning in today, will the genotype be back in time for farmers to sell calves at 2 to 3 weeks of age?
Yeah, look, and I suppose it was definitely, you know, it's probably to want to get their calf registered, get the sample taken relatively quick, and get it sent off for analysis. And you know, that generally will come back relatively quick. The initial talk is probably around 2 weeks of a turnaround time. You know, if they're selling calves in around 3 weeks of age, they want to get the calf genotyped relatively quick afterwards, get it sent off, and get the sample back and get the analysis back. Yeah.
So look, again back to a bit of financials, Liam. Milk replacer, there's talk that it'll fall in price. Do you see it falling any more in price, or is it at the bottom at the moment?
I'm not trying to upset anyone in any shape or form, but it's back a long way compared to where it was 14 months ago. Right, it's back over €10 a bag. At the minute, I think it is more likely to start moving upwards if there's any movement in dairy prices at all. They're a bit flat at the moment, but their expectation is that milk price will rise, might not massively, but somewhat, and there is slight pressure to increase prices, but mostly at the moment, milk replacers on average, you know, whether you're going for your 23s or back to your 20, you're probably looking in a range of 47 up to 52, kind of a range, which is bringing in around 28 cents to 32 cents a litre for milk replacer, and within that you get more cereal protein and you get less dairy protein, you get less of the more digestible ones the lower you go down the line. But at the minute, I don't think there's further price reductions imminent. More likely, it could be a slight rise, if anything.
Yeah, so there's no point holding off and buying milk replacement.
I would say at this stage, not. I don't think so anyway.
Yeah. So look, I'm going to be skipping questions because I know we're running out of time. So look, back to you, Charlie. So what's your preference for calf type? Is it hard to pay for higher value calves instead of Friesians? So look, if for every 100 calves that you buy is an extra 10 or 15,000 that you have to pay before you get a return. So where do you see the benefits of good traditional type cattle? Or
so like when we started out, we were predominantly Friesians for the first 2 to 3 years. Look, it's down to personal preference. Having the beef bred type calves, you're getting the additional bonus in the factory. We bring them from calf the whole way through the finish, so we get to see the pure benefits. Having the beef bred calves, look, they're going to finish a little bit quicker. You're going to have that reduced slaughter age. You're going to have cash flow in the back end of the year, whereas with the Friesians, that's going to be later in the spring of the second year. So look, having a mixture of both always works well. Especially if you're getting set up that you have that cash flow coming in that little sooner. So yeah, like the reduction in feed inputs as well in the beef bred cattle is a big thing. Yeah.
So 60-day feeding will get your cattle along with your beef bred cattle, whereas your Friesian type cattle probably needs 100 days feeding. So look, Tommy, I'll throw a question at you. So this is the question that always comes up: an early born calf, how much more is he worth than a late March, early April born calf?
Yeah, look, both calves I suppose have a role to play, and both calves do need to be reared. But that early born calf, you know, you can get him out to grass early. He'll be set up quicker. He'll get more value. You get more weight gain from grass over the first grazing season, and you possibly get to pull the concentrates for a period of time during the first summer at grass. You know, most of our farmers are willing to pay 20-30 euros extra for that calf earlier on in the year. If they could get the early maturing calves or the continental calves at that stage, they would be willing to pay a bit extra for them as well, because they'll have a heavier animal coming in, and they'll have them reared ready for grass, and they'll be ready to take off when they do get to the grass. You know, so look, depending on the calf type, but 20-30 euros would be as much as you'd be fit to give for her.
Yeah, and so look, I'll finish up soon with you, Liam. So look, this is a question on milk powder. It's probably milk powder that's not mixed right. So the question is, how would you know if protein is denatured or not?
Probably end up, if it's badly denatured, you end up calf can't digest it. So it's going to give you class of nutritional scour is how you know what the contributing factor will be to it, like, you know.
Yeah, and look, is there any advantage on keeping calves on milk till they're 12 weeks of age before weaning into summer scour and coccidiosis down the line?
Summer scour really is I won't say it's a new phenomenon, but it's to answer the question, you generally most people will put them on will leave them on 3 litres morning and evening, or whatever their system is, till about 7 to 8 weeks of age, and then the weaning process starts. Few years back, maybe people were tending to leave them. The weaning process didn't start maybe till 9 or 10 weeks, right? You'll have a heavier calf, but that's still not going to solve the problem of summer scour. Summer scour is mostly your January born, your February born calves don't. Tommy might come into this as well. They don't tend to suffer as much from the summer scour. It tends to be that all your calves are being moved out at the same time. So it's the late born, the late purchase calf is getting a shorter weaning period, and they're being pushed out on grass that tends to be very lush and high in basically in nitrogen. So there's not enough fibre, and it's short weaning, lush grass. Charlie and Tommy, I don't know what you'd have to.
Just probably back to the comment there, I suppose. What's that earlier calf worth? You know, as Liam alluded to, that later born calf, you know, it's probably you're coming towards the end of your calf year and maybe a bit of fatigue setting in. You know, you want to get your calves reared and out to grass. They mightn't be fully weaned correctly. They mightn't be on that kilo or 2 kilos a meal. You know, the rumen mightn't be fully developed, and then they're going out to a high, when grass growth is probably at its peak, they're going out to a high nitrogen sward, and you are seeing a bit of summer scour. And as well, they're probably, if at the trot, they wouldn't be able to compete as strongly for concentrates, so the fibre would be reduced. So that's probably back to your earlier calf being worth that bit more as well. So that would all feed into the.
Yeah, and so look, just coming on to maybe touching on to a bit about this calves of grass. So look, Tommy, should a meal be pulled after a month out on grass, or should you keep some throughout the summer?
Look, that's a question. Like years like last year, in certain parts of the country, you definitely wouldn't get to pull the meal. There's a lot of, you know, the grass was wet. The dry matter grass was very low all year. You know, you had cold nights, you had cold days, and that's what was difficult. But pulling the meal, it's farm specific. If you're good at grassland management, the calf is transitioning well to grass. After 6 or 8 weeks, there might be a period there where you would get to pull it. But it's critical that you go back in early then in the autumn with meal, you know, because you need to keep the calf moving that grass. You know, in September time of year, day in starts to drop, the quality starts to reduce in the grass. You need to start supplementing again. But it's solely farm specific. Grassland management to a high level, you possibly will get to pull the concentrates for a period, provided the calf is of an adequate age. But if not an adequate age, definitely you would be recommending.
Yeah, them later born cows probably needs meal.
Definitely do, yeah.
So look, I'll finish on you, Charlie. So Charlie is the farmer amongst us. So look, roughage for your calves, hay or straw. Look, straw is scarce, and I might come touch on to the other two lads later on, but what do you feed your calves, hay or straw?
Yeah, we always feed them straw from a young age, even right through grass. We'd find it's great as trace minerals. It's great for roughage, and especially when you're going into that lush grass, it's just as it helps balance the diet. Yeah.
Just look at straw is scarce, Liam. Would you be in favour of maybe hay is scarce too this year with the wet summer?
I think what Charlie's kind of saying there, I think you have to prioritise straw for baby calves, young calves, both for bedding and for both as a roughage source in a rack, not on the ground itself. I think you can't compromise it. You'll pay for it in the end with veterinary bills by skimping on straw for bedding. But basically, as a forage source, basically hay, you can run the risk of pot-belly calves from hay, where some calves won't eat meal and they'll fill themselves up with hay, which doesn't have the same value in terms of performance or rumen development as what you'll get if you keep just straw in the rack and make sure they have plenty of concentrate in front of them.
Yeah. So look, thank you to all our excellent panel tonight. So Tommy, Charlie and Liam. And also to Eric Driver for his assistance and cooperation in being interviewed last week. This was our final webinar in the current series, where we have covered many aspects of preparing for calf rearing this spring. On night 1 we looked at calf health and housing, and the areas sourcing and feeding cows were comprehensively covered tonight. But I'd also like to thank our programme sponsors, Volok, MSD, Liffey Mills, Corteva and Munster Bovine, and my own Dairy Beef 500 team, and our production team here in the studio tonight. And also to you, the audience, for your questions and participations. These webinars have been recorded, and if you wish to view them for further information on the Dairy Beef 500 programme, please visit the Teagasc website or contact your local Teagasc advisor or office. Good night.